Smile, Rob.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Rob Sheridan. I'm going to be hosting this podcast tonight. This podcast will be a conversation with y'all and with our great candidate, Neil Stevens, with our two local residents. Merrill, thank you for coming. Ray, thank you very much for coming. I'm privileged to be with them and to be with you all tonight. I'm also privileged to be a resident of this great city, to be close to the countryside, to be able to go on walks and hiking when I want to enjoy the beauty of the nature. I'm privileged to be close to the ocean, where I can go take a dip, a sail, or just chill out on the beach. What I'm mostly privileged about is to be here with Neil tonight and to have a conversation with you where I will hope that you will feed your questions in so that we can have a conversation together like we do as a family, where politics won't make any difference. And so, where at the end of the conversation, I hope that you'll consider making Neil your next councillor from the Alphington and Cowick Division in the Devon County Council. Neil, thank you for arranging this podcast. Please tell us why you're standing. What in the world is this all about?
Yeah, thank you, Rob, for the introduction. And let's just make it clear, this is the first time we've actually done this, so just bear with us. So why am I standing? Okay, good question. We all know the challenges we face in Exeter. We all know what's going on. Okay, I'm standing to make a change. I am there because we've been lied to and nothing happens. So I will give it my utmost to change the policies and what goes on in Alphington and Cowick Ward.
Thank you, Neil. You know, it suddenly occurred to me just before we went live, without doing high-level math, I was trying to calculate up how many years of residency you all have. And I think it's at least 150. But Ray, what do you think it is?
200 years, I would say.
Okay. Well, that's good enough for me. What do you think, huh?
A couple of centuries.
So I think, and I hope that you will reflect the sentiments of everybody that's in this podcast so that we can dig in and see what it is are the top issues. Neil, what do you think are the top issues?
Okay, I've been around Alphington and Cowick, and first of all, I apologise, I can't speak to everybody, but what I've done is I've gathered as much information which I can then relay to you guys. Just go back to this conversation today. Some of it will be a little bit controversial, all right, but it's mainly about Alphington and Cowick and Exeter. That's where we are. Okay, the issues we're going to cover tonight, and I'm looking forward to some of your questions coming in, is the heat source pump down in Marsh Barton, the solar panel down in Marsh Barton, the extra double lines they're going to put down in Marsh Barton. We all know about the potholes, okay?
Yeah.
The constructions of the new site outside Alphington and the houses and the car numbers. The extra yellow cameras, which is very controversial, right, which we'll talk about. And there's more subjects. But with your questions, we will answer them to the best of our ability.
Yeah, it's interesting. There is a lot of housing going up, Neil. I know young people need housing. You know, we all need housing. It's too expensive. What are your views on all the housing that's going up?
Okay, so going back to the people I've spoke to, and you guys can interject here, right? So we have a large number of buildings or houses being built or have been built on the outskirts of Alphington. Right, let's break this down. All right, we all know we need housing. We all know we need affordable housing. Okay, but let's just break it down to what's happened. So speaking to local residents who live in Alphington, and you know, I have been questioned, do I live in Alphington? I do live in the ward. Look at your wards, all right, because people don't realise what streets are in them wards. But they had a consultation with Devon County Council. This is what I've been told. Devon County Council then went ahead with then the local residents weren't happy with it, so they went to the Ombudsman. The Ombudsman sided with Devon County Council. The words, this is not my words, but basically the residents knew they would side with the local authority, and they said the houses are going to be built. Okay, going back to the houses. So let's look at them. They're very nice houses. We know that social housing has to be put in, all right, but it'd be interesting to see how many social housing there is there and how much them houses are worth, because in my eyes, they're very good houses, all right? So are local people buying the houses?
Yeah, and you know something? You know, young kids are always on my mind, you know, because I have a family and, you know, although some of them are older, I still have some that are younger and are looking to buy their first house. But I agree with you. I haven't seen any houses there in the developments that would suit, you know, my kids, my younger kids anyway. What do you think?
Well, I know, you know, this is all controversial, so this is only what I know. So I know that my nephew is buying a house there and he's getting help. Okay, percentage-wise, I don't know. But let's just look at the infrastructure there. You know, in my eyes, you don't build a house without foundations. Without foundations, you need your water supply, you need your gas, your electric, and so on. So if we break that up a bit but further, you know, we need medical facilities. We need places where people can recreational, right? We definitely need a good road structure, okay? So all these facilities should be put in. Now, I know they promised to do this, or they're going to do it,
Yeah.
but realistically, you know, one lady said it took 10 years to get some money out of, well, it should have been out of the people building the houses, but the local authority have given some money.
I've got a question.
Yeah.
You have any idea how many cars, you know, are going to be driving through, you know, more traffic?
Good question, Ray. Mo, how many cars do you think are going to be travelling through that village? Remember, it's not all about the village. It's Cowick, Alphington
I don't know,
Road.
400, 500, 600, maybe 1,000.
Mo, any
About it,
3,500 cars they estimate
3,500.
per
Wow.
day going through that village, and that's not just cars. Okay, so we've got the big lorries. So you know we're on about the traffic calming schemes.
Yeah.
You know, they want to be implemented now.
Yeah. Now, our colleague here just told me that there's an interesting question from our audience. Thank you very much, audience. And the question is actually related to what you're just saying is, so with all this traffic, how will you tackle the traffic and the parking issues in the area? What are your thoughts on that, Neil?
Okay, so we need to control the amount of traffic going in. We have got the parking rides, but we could also say the bus lanes and all that are not enough frequent buses. But we need to control the structure first, i.e. the housing areas. Then we need to do something about the roads, all right, without making the roads more usable. Okay, they're just going through a small... Remember, Exeter never got destroyed like Plymouth did, so all our roads are very small roads. Okay, but you're cramming more people on the outskirts. They've got to go in to the city. So Alphington Road, all these main arteries, I want to call it, right, can't handle it. All right, you can't handle it. So somehow we have to build a structure where the roads are going around and then come in. We need more park and ride areas. But then it's controversial then because we're going to hit green belt areas. What's your views, guys?
Cars wise, often the road can be a nightmare coming into town, and therefore that hinders bus times. Now, being a bus user, being a pensioner and a bus user, I got a choice. I could go to Alphington Road and wait and hope a bus turns up, and maybe the one doesn't. Many a time I've waited an hour, so therefore I got to walk to Cowick Street, which is slightly better. But then again, there's not so much traffic coming into town from that because it's not as a main artery like the Alphington Road is. So that needs improving to allow the buses to come through on time when you can get one.
Right, so everything we talk about tonight, it will always come down to money. All right, money.
Yep.
All right, we'll talk about the speed cameras in a minute and something I said. I mean, you use the bus service, do you?
No, I don't use it.
You drive.
I got a car, yeah.
Okay.
I
And how
drive.
do you find parking in Exeter city centre, for example?
Very rare I go in the city centre because I hate it.
Can you explain why you hate it?
Yeah, it's always full of people. I know it sounds stupid, but there is always full of people. They bump into you. They've got no manners. I mean, I've got bad knees, yeah? And if somebody knocks into me, which
Yep.
they have done in the past, they could knock me over
Okay.
because I'd lose my balance, yeah? But these people that do this never apologise, never say, well, several times I've said, excuse me, manners don't cost money. You know, it's I just don't like it. Too many people, you know, and they don't, half of them don't look where they're going.
Yeah. So going back to the question you asked was, how do we improve it? Right. We've got to have the structure or the infrastructure, the roads before we build these big complexes. I mean, it's a lot of cars.
You got to have the support there.
Got to
you
have
know.
the support. And I know the building companies promise the support, but 10 years to getting some money out of them, they still haven't got the
Yeah.
money out of them. I might be incorrect, but this is what I've been told by
Yeah.
local residents.
And businesses, they're suffering because the parking's so expensive.
Yeah.
We need to look at all the alternatives, really. Maybe a parking garage, but without the businesses, we won't have the heart of the city any longer, right? I mean, what kind of changes have you seen in the business structure, Neil?
Okay, so I'm going to pass that to you in a minute, but it's just, we talk about Cowick and we talk about Alphington. Let's talk about Carrot Street. If you look at the one side of Carrot Street is Cowett Ward, and the other side of Carrot Street, or the main shopping, is St Thomas. Okay, we can talk about charity shops because we all love charity shops, and they are there for a good cause. But it's not all about charity shops. You were talking earlier on about charity shops. What's your view?
Well, they are a good cause, aren't they? Because you're giving money to people who really need it.
Yeah.
And if I quite often want to buy something clothes-wise, I'll go into a charity shop because I'm giving money to help somebody else.
But we also need equal shares. So we also need like the butchers. We need the hairdressers. We need a mixture of shops.
Yeah.
Right. So my personal question or my personal view is Carrick Street has changed. Okay. It's not that vibrant. And I don't know if you guys ever remember the Christmas tree lights turn on. That was vibrant. Hundreds of people used to turn up. Now it's gone flat.
What,
Right.
do they have Christmas lights anymore?
Yeah, they still do. They still do. Yeah, they still have Christmas lights, and whoever does that, brilliant. I'll take your hat off. We done it for, I think, 3 or 4 years, and it's hard work, so I understand. I don't think they have a switch on because I realise how hard
Yeah.
work it is. But let's put that uptown. We can divide town into 3 different parts. The centre where all the money gets spent, and then we move up past Sybil Street, and it deteriorates.
This is an interesting conversation. In fact, one of our viewers just gave us a question which kind of links this all together. Could we address that? Which is, do you think the council is spending money wisely? And how does this relate to the traffic and business situation? I mean, I read somewhere that there's a huge deficit in the county council, and there's some horrendous amount of interest that we're paying just for the loan itself. Meryl, do you have any idea how much that is? Maybe a day
None
or
whatsoever.
yeah.
No, I don't know.
Ray, Neil?
I would imagine if it's big enough, it's horrendous. Probably 20, 30,000.
What do you think it is, Neil?
Okay, so I know my figures, and if you've got my leaflet, which most people would have come out. We got to be careful here because we're talking about Exeter City Council, which is Labour run, and we're looking at Devon County Council, which is Conservative run. Okay, so we just pick on one or the other. So shall we just pick on Devon County Council? Because that's who I'm trying to stand for.
Right.
All right, Devon County Council.
Yeah.
Now, whether you all agree with this, guys, I don't know. But I know that they're roughly £467 million in debt. So that
My
produces
goodness.
a debt of
467 million.
and that produces
Oh my God.
£53,000 per day interest, which is your council tax money has to pay for it a day.
Wow.
That's
Okay.
just to keep things going
That's
as
just
is
interest.
without them.
Okay, now we can get controversial here where we've got to pay for social services, we've got to pay for charity. I totally agree with that. Okay, all right, but your council tax is going up. right? We need to be looking at where it's going. So let's just throw a controversial question. Everybody brings out potholes. Okay. Now, on one of the manifests, if I'm correct, have you read any of the manifests?
Well, the Labour.
Yeah,
manifesto.
anything. I'm not going to pick on an individual party because we're not
Nah.
here to throw mud around.
I must admit, when I was watching before the election, their manifesto seemed to be all over the place. There didn't seem to be any structure with it, for me anyway. And I've been a Conservative all my life, but I've changed my allegiance now, and hence the reason that I will be voting for you as a Reform candidate.
That's a good point, actually. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Right. When I spoke to you the other day and I asked you to come online, which, by the way, was only yesterday, so thank you for coming on, you gave me an interesting feedback. You said you were a Labour supporter. You've been a Conservative supporter. And you watch the news and you listen to the news. So just tell me, you know, it's like some of the politicians, they change, they're 1 minute they're a Labour candidate, then they're a Conservative candidate.
That's
and then,
right.
All right, so tell me why you changed your politics.
Well, because people the politicians say this and say that and say the other. They're going to do this, they're going to do that, they're going to do the other. And they're all liars.
Let's not use the word liars. So we just say that maybe they don't.
Haven't thought through it.
Fully tell the truth.
Thought
Well,
through it.
yeah.
Yeah, may not have thought
Same
through
difference, isn't it?
enough to-
and then, we're going to do this and nothing happens. We're going to do that. Nothing happens. And I gave up in the end. I thought, oh, for goodness sake, why, when people say they're going to do something, why don't they do it? Why do they lie to us? If they're not got no intentions of doing it, then don't say it.
Yeah, no, interesting
yeah.
point is, I wouldn't use the word lie. A lot of people would say, well, they haven't got the money because that's an easy answer. Where's
Yeah,
the
but
money?
they
Yeah.
do lie. That's the problem.
Well, let's
Yeah.
go back to this question to make sure we answer it, which is kind of what you were getting to anyway. But whether the council is spending money wisely. I remember, Neil, looking at your latest flyer. It's A4 flyer with 4 pages on it or
4
something.
pages, yeah.
You've got all your different items that you stand for, which actually I've seen all the other flyers. I don't remember the other ones having that extensive. So, I think in one of them you mentioned there is some sort of a central heat plant or something. Is that an example
that's a
of
very
where the money
interesting
is
question. I'd
going?
like to come back to the potholes later.
Okay,
An
I'll
idea,
put a
and
note for that.
I like the people's feedback on this. Okay, so down Marsh Barton, all right, which is in Alphington, everybody should know the new railway station.
Yeah.
Brilliant for the railway station, and that's another story, the railway station. Okay, so they're suggesting a heat source pump down there. I was told, remember, this is only factual, I get told on the street, that Devon County Council are trying to push this through before the May elections. I might be wrong, all right, and I'm sure somebody can correct me on this. But it is not run by Devon County Council. It's not going to be constructed by their or Exeter City Council. It is going to be an independent company which have sourced or asked for a grant from
Partially from the government, I think.
from
isn't
the
it?
government, and I'm just getting the figures right, £42.7 million to build this structure.
My goodness.
Okay, very good. So, we all want to save the planet and we all want to do this and that. But let's look at, if anybody heard the word greenwashing. Have you heard of greenwashing?
No, what is it? It's
Have you heard of
something to do
greenwashing?
with
No.
the environment or something. Or what?
Okay, so
Pulling the wool over your eyes of something, perhaps.
greenwashing, green layering, it comes out with this terminology. So that's how they sell it to the public. Okay, so basically they wrap the green, let's just call it the green sail around it, but they don't tell you the actual facts. Okay, so let's look at the solar farm down there.
So it's trying to pull the wool over your eyes by putting something over it, which really isn't it.
Yeah, I
Right?
mean, I could break this down very quick.
Yeah, trendy green, but
Right,
it's not
so
green.
the solar farm down there is right next to the railway station. Okay, don't quote me on the amount, but when I went down there, I could count either 19 or 20 diesel engines.
Diesel generators.
Yeah, which is strapped
Yeah.
next.
Well,
to
you can look on Google Earth. Right?
Yeah, well, Google Earth.
Yeah.
If, they're not. I actually gave them the benefit of the doubt, and I thought, are they
That's not green,
batteries?
is it?
Are they batteries, storage batteries? But they're diesel engines,
Yeah.
and they kick in
Well,
about
that's
12
not
o'clock
green,
at
is
night.
it?
Right, but let's go back to the heat source pump. Okay, if it's a new village or a new town like Cranbrook, Okay, I think it's Eon has done that. Eon, right? They've got an 80-year contract
To do what, Neil?
that to supply the hot water, the electricity.
So they got the monopoly.
They got the monopoly, which
I
to
thought
me
that
is
was
80-year
against the law,
contract.
having a
80-year
monopoly.
contract. Now, I've had some gentleman wrote to me on my Facebook, and I replied, and he gave me all the details. I think he was waiting 2 weeks before it was sorted out. His hot water, the bills are wrong, blah blah blah. So very interesting. So let's just flip this down to.
Can I just bring you back to your first topic about the heat pump and
Okay,
how
so-
the plans are, what, a central system or something?
I say the heat source pump down Marshbarden, and it's going to feed hot water to the hospital. Brilliant.
Yeah.
The cathedral.
Okay.
Brilliant. And the university. Okay, let's look at it. £42.7 million. Right, first thing they're going to do, they have to cross the canal and the river. Right, we are a Roman archaeological site.
Yeah.
So as soon as you dig, every 10 metres, they're going to have to stop. They're going to have to do a survey on it, log it, fill it back in. That's the first thing. Right, then we're going to supply the hospital with this. Right, so imagine they're getting tied into these contracts.
Mm.
It's a private equity company who's buying it, by the way, sourcing the
You know what? If I would love to have an 80-year contract, Ray, wouldn't you?
Oh, yeah.
Gosh, even a 30-year contract.
Well, yeah,
That's
just think,
ridiculous.
they've got the monopoly then. So the hospital's tied into it. Well, we need hospitals. They're tied into it. They control the bills.
Okay.
So the hospital will pay more in the end. All right. And also, strapped to the heat source pump is going to be generators as well.
So that sort of relates back to the question that the viewer asked about whether the council is spending money wisely. And can I just come back to you all out there and just say, if we don't answer your questions, please ask them again, politely, of course. And in that respect, we've got another question. Can I field that one? What are your plans if elected, Neil? Will you plan on interacting and communicating frequently on a personal level, or are you going to just be a bureaucrat sitting back and we never hear from you again?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Okay, so what I'm trying to do now, this is an introduction. All right, so if this works, this will go once, twice a week. And this is, first of all, to communicate with everybody who lives in our wards. Okay, that's the first step. Once or if I get elected, there'll be a Facebook, emails, my personal address, phone numbers. I can't help everybody, and I can't change the world. All right. As a collective group of people, we can do our best to change how money is spent in our ward. All right. But I need you to get hold of me. All right. I will be seen present. I go to the chatterbox. That's another story. Brilliant chatterbox. All right, I've been invited in there and I've talked to some lovely people. We haven't got much in Carrick Street. All right, we've got the church there. We need more places where people can meet and greet.
Yeah. Well, this is a great idea, having this podcast, if you want to call it podcast, or anyway, a session where we can invite, Meryl, a Labor supporter, or Ray, a conservative. It doesn't matter what you are, really. You're both residents. You're both British, right? And,
Yes.
Frequent communication with people. I think I rarely use Facebook, actually, but there are a couple of comments that were made, and I couldn't help but asking a couple of the people on there, hey, let's not be Facebook warriors, keyboard warriors. Let's have a cup of coffee. And actually, one of them, I was really thrilled. He was a Lib Dem, I think, really young chap. He agreed to have a coffee with me. And although we didn't meet, I really appreciated that we were able to do that. So I think this forum is a great idea, Neil, and I'm thrilled that you're going to be continuing with that. What other ideas are there? You mentioned Chatterbox, right? That's a good forum.
Yeah, I've met, right, so Chatterbox, if you don't know, and it's open to anybody, it is run free of charge. These are volunteer people. And without waffling too much, I used to go Sunday school in that place. And it brought back some memories when I went there. And I used to live in Myrtle Close. People do question it. Yes, I did live in Myrtle Close. And there's still people go to the Chatterbox that remember my family and myself living there.
Where is
Crikey.
the chat
Yeah.
box?
Okay, so if you go through Alphington near the health centre there or the clinic, right next door to there.
All right.
Right, I think Adrian Carpenter and some other people invested a lot of their time, right, and got it working. And I'll tell you what, if you can go down there, the conversations you have
Yeah.
are very interesting people.
I mean, it's a great community. There's someone I was just made aware of this week who goes to St. Michael's Church in Alphington.
Yeah.
And they have a group that knocks on doors and meets and gets to know the residents. Because, when you get older, your partner or spouse may pass on and then you get a little bit lonely and they're reaching out to them. There's some really great outreach. That's why I love living here. What else, Neil? Any other good ideas?
Well, going back to that, so I'm taking my mother tomorrow because she wants to meet her old neighbours. Right, but if you remember the age concern in Carrot Street? Yeah, my father used to go there. He used to wheel him in they used to pick him up in his wheelchair, take him there, and he loved it. That closed down, I know, because of COVID and all that and funding, right? But that building is owned by Exeter City Council, if I'm correct. They're trying to sell it. All right, so that money would just get washed away. Why don't you just give it back to the community? I know it's going to cost money, all right? But somehow, if they can run that project in Alphington, why can't we replicate it somewhere else? And it's not just can be used for people to have chatter. They can use it as a...
for youngsters.
Yeah, there used to be the Loft Club. Anybody remember? You might remember the Loft Club?
I don't remember
No.
Loft Club.
Loft Club where you could go along, mix, Yeah, I love table tennis.
Youth clubs and things like that.
Yeah,
could be
so
used
they do
for,
have youth clubs, but I think we should look at doing the youth clubs. Table. I just think table tennis is a good sport as well. Yeah, we're looking at all ages. So anybody got suggestions? Areas we can do that. I know there is some places, but prime example is that chatterbox.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great community. One thing that troubles me though is seeing the graffiti around. And there's always sort of an excuse from the people that I've reached out to, where they say, "Well, we don't own that." For example, the St. Thomas train station. Well, we don't own that because the railway company owns that. And we don't know the BT boxes. BT owns that. So there's always an excuse. And
well, perhaps we could thank Banksy for all that.
well, I mean, I
he's making a lot of money, Banksy.
Exactly,
yeah. I think the community spirit would be good to have volunteers, get together and with the consent of some of these places like BT or companies,
Well, I
repaint
did see
them.
the other day, which was quite refreshing, at the top of Sydney Road, where the old Speedway ground, if you know that.
Oh, yeah.
There's a large box there. I presume it's to do with the power and all that. But two gentlemen were actually painting the graffiti off back to green.
Okay.
Right, but come on, let's talk about
Well, that's good,
Alfred
isn't
and
it?
Cowick.
Well, I've seen your sister do the same with the one outside of your mum's place.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Just
down
tell it. Yeah,
because
when they wrote that stuff
yeah.
on the wall.
Yeah. So what's the point? I mean, it's just kids that really haven't been educated or brought up right.
Or they haven't got anything to do.
Well, this is where I come back to youth clubs.
That's
my
right.
Son, my son
But you're
runs
saying
a-
educated. I mean, they all go to school, so they're all educated.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
by the parents. I was
Yeah, but there
educated
isn't-
by my parent. If
There
I
isn't
did
enough
something
for them
like that,
to do, is there?
Yeah.
I would be given a toothbrush
Yeah.
and told to
You know
scrub it
what?
off.
You guys must be clairvoyant because we just got handed a question from someone. I hope these are genuine questions. I
We
think
got
they are.
names who actually gave the question. If you want to put your names on, guys, if you don't want to, just your first name, because we're trying to
Yeah.
be open and honest here. We're not going to please everybody, and I'm not pretending to please everybody. We're trying to be open and honest and answer the questions as fairly and squarely as we feel.
We already started the discussion actually about the question that was just asked, which is how can young people get involved in local decision making and link that to the youth clubs? That's sort of what we were talking about already about.
Yeah.
But there isn't enough to do, is there? This is why
Well,
the kids
the
get into
question
trouble.
was the question was
'Cause they're
how can
bored.
they get
Yeah.
involved in local decisions, which is because everybody should have a voice.
Down to the parents, I'm afraid. Because if they look around, they will find that around the city is dotted boys' brigade units all around the city. And they interact with each other. They go off to places like Pembrokeshire for holidays and things like that. And there's Exeter, there's 3 in this city, and they also interact with Torquay, Credit, and places out at Lyon. And it's been going on for donkey's years. And I know that for a fact because I took my children there from the age of 5.
Okay.
And my son now runs one of them. and he's now 38.
You said Boys Brigade or Cubs or Scouts?
No, it's Boys Brigade. It's church.
Yeah.
Years ago,
The
in my young
Methodist
days,
Church
it used to
has
be
it,
Church
right?
Lads Brigade.
Yeah.
But it's called the Boys Brigade.
Oh, no.
Probably being a bit sexist here, but girls can go as well.
Yeah.
So it's not. I mean, nowadays they've got both genders, both boys and girls. You know, so there are things around if the parents are bothered enough to get off their backsides and take them to these places, because they've got to be taken there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't let them go on their own.
Yeah.
You know, at the age of, they could go from the age of 6, which is Church Lads Brigade,
Mm,
and they go
mhm,
to the
mhm.
no, juniors, church lads.
Yeah.
No, church lads, juniors and seniors. Yeah. And a lot of them, they go on through and they become officers and instructors for the next bunch of
Yeah.
youngsters. But it needs the parents to know about these things and maybe, as I say, make an effort to do
Yeah.
these things. And also, the positive side, and I know I'm being a little bit long-winded here, is they're away from their schoolmates on most cases, so they're making a new bunch of friends. So they may be getting dragged out away from that sort of gang-like type thing in schools to mix with other children from other direct places, which educates them how to mix, not just in one little clique.
Mm.
Yeah, I actually was a Cub, 13th Exeter,
Yeah, well, there you go.
and I was a Scout, and actually everything I learned there I used for the army, so all my knots, all my survival
Yeah.
building, how
I
to
was a
keep
Boy Scout
clean, how to
too.
keep
Yeah.
tidy.
I think promoting those.
Oh, they got a place up on Haytor, which they'll be going up to. I think it's next month.
Yeah.
Around about the 10th. They spend the weekend up there, and they do death slides, play football, all this sort of thing, all the fun stuff that kids like to do.
Mm.
Going back to the graffiti, how, because there's more and more
Yeah,
of
but
it.
it might take them away from that.
That's a good
side.
plan, preempty.
Yeah.
Right, but
Exactly.
how do we deter them right now? Because I never see it getting done.
We could. I mean, it could be if obviously everything goes back to money, but maybe have a place where these children or youngsters can go to and they can actually demonstrate their art in proper
Yeah.
areas.
Controlled area.
Yeah, not necessarily on somebody's back wall, you know, and get something out of it. Maybe if they did it on something that could be sold, passed on, shown, demonstrated.
That's a good
'Cause
idea.
some of them are brilliant.
Remember, guys, we want ideas as well because
Coming back
we're only
to-
4 people.
Coming back to that place that you said they shut down, ideal for something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it could sustain itself with a small amount of help, maybe by just paying subs to go in,
Yeah.
and things like that. And maybe if they sell things or make things, and
All
I
fun.
think-
yeah.
I think promoting youth activities is so
Yeah.
important,
oh yes,
and
involved.
involvement from youth. And can I just share, Neil, with everybody that through knowing you and working with you in what we're doing here, what I've observed is that you're a leader, a team player, and you involve a lot of different people. We have a very large campaign team which incorporates a lot of different people, a lot of different skill sets. Part of that is we have some university students on it. One of the students did a demographic analysis of where we should knock on doors. The other one linked it to different political concepts. Involving youth in everything that we do is so important because they're thrilled to be part of your campaign, Neil.
Well,
Yeah.
this is a foundation again, isn't it? We're
Yes.
talking about the youth, and in our area, there's plenty of youth. There's schools.
Mm,
The foundation needs to be
exactly, yeah.
educated
Yeah.
and given something worthwhile to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, Ray, you mentioned something. Again, I think we're the audience is in tune exactly with what we were saying because Helen, I guess we can use your name here, apparently. She suggested exactly what you did, Ray, which is graffiti boards. I guess that's what it is, right?
Yeah.
A dedicated place. I know, for example, at the end of Queens Road, if the audience knows where I'm talking about,
It's a
Queens
tire
Road,
place.
it's near,
railway
the
bridge.
tire place underneath the railway bridge on Elfington Road. There's one section there which has got some lovely, I guess if you like graffiti, you know, some very artistic graffiti anyway, some highly skilled graffiti.
Yes.
And that's a great, you know, that's okay. You know, what isn't okay to me is what isn't okay to me is graffiti everywhere, like you were talking about,
Yeah,
Ray.
it's-
the
it's
railway
like,
bridge
it's like
everywhere you
signature
go.
graffiti, I
Yeah.
call it.
Yes.
So everybody wants to make a mark.
Yeah.
So they have this signature, then somebody else puts a signature, and I'll tell you, the city
All
looks
over the
bad.
place, yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's a great idea, Helen.
There's only
maybe
one I like, and
maybe we
that's the
should. I'm
one
sorry.
of the woman outside the white. Is it the white shop?
Oh, the white shot. Yeah,
Oh,
that
well,
was
that
an art.
was-
Yeah, that's a piece of art. That's brilliant.
That was
Yeah.
brilliant. Yeah.
But that's been
And
ruined
people
by somebody.
Oh, was it?
So
Oh,
we're going to
yeah.
keep that recommendation because
Yeah.
we should consider maybe some other areas that are,
Very similar. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and but also to
But
get
we still
the
need to make a
graffiti
deterrent
under control.
So
yeah,
How do we make a deterrent? I mean, I don't know our statistics. How many people have been caught?
yeah,
Oh, they just don't seem to bother.
No,
The
it's a
thing-
shame.
I mean, this thing is same old thing. I know it's going to get political
Yeah.
now, but I'm going to say this one thing: if you say something out of place, you got half a dozen police on your doorstep. You could deface something, and they take no notice at all. So where's the balance? Where's the logic? Where's
Yeah.
where is what's the point?
Let me just rewind back a little bit because we have a good question here from Peter, and I just want to preface the question by reminding everybody of the statement that I made initially, which was, or maybe wanted to say but didn't, which is that we know that we need change. It's all in news media. It's all in our families. Everybody talks about it. You can see it with the graffiti. We need change. And Neil, thank you for your top issues. Peter's question is, guys, is it because that are you supporting Neil because he's your friend, or is it because you believe that he and the party can deliver that change? And if so, what are the changes? Just highlight those. So could you answer, is it just because you're friends of Neil, first of all, or is it because you want change?
I'm going to put my penny worth in here. It's not because of Neil, although I like Neil, I know him, and friends with him. But I voted for reform in the last election.
I see.
That was before Neil said anything about
Mm-hmm,
being a councillor. So therefore, the two marry together for me.
Yeah.
So that's the way I should
Merle, now I know that you said that you voted Labor in the past, and you've reconsidered that, and so there are certain changes that you want to make. Is that so? Are you supporting Neil because he's your friend, or have you considered what changes you want, or how do they relate to each other?
Well, I've known Neil a long time, and I know for a fact that if Neil says something, he means it.
Yeah.
And if he's going to do something, he does it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which the other parties, well, like we were saying earlier, they promise this, they promise that, and they promise the other, and nothing happens.
Yeah, I agree.
But I think Neil he's going to make a hell of a difference.
Can I add something to that?
Yeah.
Because I think that's a very good point. What you raise is we need someone that actually can deliver. I know, Neil, you have a track record of delivering in terms of the mission in the military and in your work. That's why you get all your referrals to work. You don't advertise. And I remember when I first moved here, you came and you introduced yourself to me, and you said, Rob, if you ever need something, if there's any emergency, just call me and I'll come right over. And you know what? I don't like calling in favors, so I resisted.
You can talk about the water leak.
Yeah, I resisted, but so I spent a whole year working on the house inside, and I got down to the last project, the family bathroom, and I was screwing down the floorboards, and the last screw went into the radiator pipe, and it went psh, and the water started coming down through the kitchen and all that stuff, and I said, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Call Neil. Is this your chance? So I called you up, and he said, Rob, I'll be right with you. And sure enough, about 1 second later, the doorbell went ding, ding, ding. There was Neil, and somehow you fixed it, and I didn't have all that destruction of my kitchen. So thank you very much.
That was very good.
No, I can seriously say, and I'm sure if the audience will check with with him because you've been here 60 years now, Neil, in the area.
50, yeah,
You've got a
yeah,
reputation.
Yeah,
man.
60 years. Sadly, I'll be
You know,
60 in May.
I hope it's a good reputation. I think it's a good reputation, but you've got a reputation, at least with me, for delivering. Thank you very much.
But don't forget, you saved yourself with your finger. So I told him basically to stick your finger on it. Then I had to go, good job the radio's one on.
Yeah, but you know, and I know that he's not the first one to do anything like that. I've drilled in the gas mains.
Yeah,
before
right,
this,
yeah.
So it does happen.
Yeah.
But it's nice to have somebody that you can rely on to sort it out quickly.
Yeah, so I don't want to go on too much, but I want to be a councillor. I've never ever done politics before. I am not a career politician.
That's why
right.
I think you
don't
might
care
be,
about
sorry,
being.
I'm going to jump in here, but that's why I think you might make a good one.
Yeah.
Because you haven't been
Conditioned.
conditioned by
Yeah.
other
Yeah.
people or
Yeah.
other bad habits. Shall
Yeah.
I say?
I just want to make a change.
Yeah.
All right, and if I can make a little change, all right, but we need more candidates.
Yeah.
All right, one man can't make a
Yeah.
difference. And I was told, but I will try my best.
And
All
you'll
right.
do it.
I am not career politics. I'm not interested except helping the
Yeah.
community.
Yeah.
Right. I want to see clean streets. I want to see the graffiti gone. Guys, I drove through Marsh Barton the other day, and I don't know whether you can relate to this. I know you can't clean the trees, okay? All right. But it just felt dirty. All right. The weeds
Yeah.
everywhere.
Need
We've
the
got people
signs,
in there.
the
We've got
road
lovely
signs,
council
Well,
people.
can I give you an example of that? Is the I don't know if you guys out there in the Ethernet, whatever. Some of you may not even live in Exeter, I'm sure. But anyway, if you come down to Exeter, you'll see there's a roundabout over the River Exe, and there's this naked tree. Poor tree. It was like probably erected in Queen Victoria's time or planted in Queen Victoria's time. The frickin' tree. Anyway, they decided it's diseased or whatever. And they didn't cut the whole thing down. They left it standing. Why? Because they claim now it's an environmentally friendly structure, this naked tree. Take a look, everybody. That's an example of what I really... It saps away at her pride, It's been there so long. Ivy is growing up. And you know what? All the woods that they chopped from the trees is laying there. And they claim, okay, well, it's nice for the bugs. But what about the tourists and appealing? But you know what the funny thing is? When I reached out to, it's not important the councillor's name because, you know what, it's like you said, it's Labor and Conservatives, doesn't make a difference. They've done, they're all.
Well, we're not
they're
going to throw
making
mud
a-
at people.
Anyway.
That's not what we do.
But what I'm saying is, when I asked the question, they told me about the environmental thing, and they also said, oh, by the way, we don't even know who owns the land. Is it the Southwest Water? Is it the Devon County Council? So anyway, meanwhile, the tree's there and it's an eyesore. So I hope you can at least get the tree fixed and get the graffiti cleaned up so we can be proud of our area. That's,
But it's very simple right now. What I find is always about money, which I agree, money has to become, right? But we need to look at where the money's being spent.
Yeah.
Right? Whether you like it or not, I know Devon County Council have a lot of managers, managing managers, and more managers.
Yeah.
And there's a small, real hardcore group who do all the work. But let's look at it realistically. Are they all working hard or are they all getting good money? I don't know. But we need to put where that money. So let's give you an example about the roundabouts. Sainsbury's. If you all go Sainsbury's in Alverton,
yeah.
the roundabout there, all the trees are gone.
Where they go?
Well,
the little roundabout.
Is it for
there.
visibility?
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
the people will say.
Yeah.
Good visibility, you can see what's going around. Or is it because they can't be bothered to have the trees, and clear it all up? It's
Yeah.
all to do with
Yeah.
money. Now look at all the grass verges which have not been trimmed and cut.
Well, on that little roundabout.
Well, yeah,
see,
look at the
thing is-
roundabout by the old swimming pool, the new swimming pool. That used to be flowers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That used to
Yeah.
be flowers.
Well, it used to be in
Well,
Britain.
Exeter City used to grow the flowers, or Devon County
Yeah.
Council.
You could get fined for
The thing is, that little mini roundabout.
Well, what do they call
see?
it now? A butterfly sanctuary.
Are
I
they
call
gonna-
it because they can't be bothered to cut the grass.
Yeah.
That's the excuse of the Greens
But
party.
it's all to do with money.
Yeah.
Right.
See, they
Can't
can.
afford to
It's
do it.
easy to cut the trees down that mini roundabout. Now they're going to take the stumps out and make a nice thing. So,
Yeah.
by the way, I want to just
But
interject.
do you agree the city looks tired?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, it's very tired.
Well, imagine
From my
another
young
10
days.
years. It's going to be even more tired.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the trouble is, if you got a house and you put 20 people in there, and then you put another 10 in, and another 10 in, and another 10 in, that house becomes very tired
Mm.
Yeah.
because there's no room.
Yeah.
Move, no room to tidy up, no room to clean, no room for anything.
I've got a question from Helen again. By the way, Helen, make yourself known after the podcast. Thank you very much for reaching out. But it kind of links into what you were just talking about. It says, everything labor has done in Exeter is aimed at students. There is a lot of investment that's been made, expenditure. What will you do, or will you do more for the residents, which is a good point. Lots been spent on the students, and swank new, apartment buildings and everything like that. But as you said, the city's tired, really, isn't it? What do you think?
But, well, let's be realistic. Students bring money into the city.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the university
costs money to be here.
University is rated to be a very good university. All right, we're not talking about Mickey Mouse courses. I don't know, and that's not my league. Right, but let's look at this. These young people are our future. So we have to give them somewhere to come to.
Yeah.
We have to come to where they can have their tea, coffee, shop, right, which then brings money into the city. But we've got to get the right balance.
Yeah.
All right, we can build and build and build, but there's only so many students that university can take. There's only so many buildings we can take.
And also,
that's why
when
they keep building more dormitory and flats for them, student flats and places like that. I expect the old police station would probably be the next one.
Well, maybe they could turn that into social housing where,
Yeah, but I bet it goes to students. They'll build on that.
I can't answer.
No,
I
you
don't do
can't.
planning.
Yeah.
I think
It's
they're
just
related, though, aren't they? Aren't they related? Because when parents come down and they say, okay, is my student going to choose Bristol or Exeter? And then they look at that naked tree, or they look at the mini roundabout, and they look at the graffiti, and they say, hey, no way, I'm not going to choose Exeter. Bristol's lovely.
Well, I just go
they're
back
linked,
to,
aren't they? We need to really invest in the local
well, I just
community.
go back. It's a cathedral city. We should be proud of our city. We're proud of, Alphington, Cowick, St. Thomas. In fact, everybody who lives in this city should be proud. Well, I think we've lost that proudness.
Yeah.
Right, and we should be proud
Used
to be.
lovely.
I think they call us Exonians, if I'm correct. It's a Roman city.
We
Yeah.
haven't got the communities that we used to have, where people used to help each other.
Yeah, but we can bring that back.
Yeah, I'd like
but
to
we
see
need people.
that
We can't
come
bring it back just one man band.
But this is why youngsters need educating in that system. But they go off in different places, and I'm afraid our communities don't stay together like they used to.
Yeah, I've got another question come in from Sarah here, which is a really good one. I'm really thrilled that she asked the question. The topic of women and feeling safe. I have someone in my family that comes to Exeter often, and she loves it, but sometimes she doesn't feel safe. And Sarah is asking, what is Reform's commitment to protecting women in the UK, but I guess means the local area, especially women-only spaces, which is a good point. We need improved street lighting for those of us who work and walk late at night also. One thing I noticed is, Queens Road is a good example, is the street lights there. If you go into any county around London, they've changed all the street lighting out, but we haven't done that in our local area anyway. More efficient street lighting.
Okay,
would be
so
better.
we're back to money again. So we have to draw the line of saving money, and we have to agree, really, if the lights are on all night, that's going to cost us money. So somebody has to pay for that. So be realistic. If I think they go off about midnight.
Yeah, it is.
Don't quote me on that.
It is.
But
midnight.
every person, not just women, everybody
me too.
should feel safe walking the streets.
Yeah.
I used to go down the 7 Stars 3 or 4 times a week. I don't even go outside my door now, not when it's dark. I just don't feel like
No, me
Meryl,
neither.
I can't run fast enough to get away from them.
No.
Meryl, why don't you feel safe? This is your city.
I feel safe during the day, but I don't go out at night.
But where we live is quite a nice area. I mean,
Yeah, but you also, Queens Road is a lovely area, but you
Well,
also get
Carrick Street, Alphington.
riffraff down there as well, and you also get trouble in Carrick Street, fights and punch-ups and drunks and all the rest of it. And I mean, I'm a person that stays up quite late,
Okay.
and I hear the noise that goes on, drunk people shouting and carrying on, and girls screaming, and I think, well, why? Why are they doing it?
You know, one thing that we might want to consider that other communities have is neighborhood watch groups. You know, to organize the community better. Like, for example, where I live, you know, we've got a WhatsApp group, and anytime anything happens, it's on the WhatsApp group, and then the police are involved. So it's really the power of the local community is really important.
Yeah.
Drugs is another thing as well, because I
Yeah.
used to see them hanging outside
Yeah.
where I live on the corner.
Mm.
But
Yeah.
this is very
Yeah.
controversial, which you know,
Yeah.
if
But
we
it's a
classify this
fact.
as antisocial behaviour,
But it's a fact. Well, they weren't causing a problem.
No.
But they were just waiting for their drugs on
Their
their bikes,
fix.
on their
Yeah.
bikes, and things like that.
But back to the
This is where I'm coming back from. No police wandering around, not a soul. And if there was somebody walking around, two or three times
Well,
a week or something,
yeah.
I
Back
was
to the streetlights, if I could say
Yeah.
this, Neil. Thinking smart is important, not just pennies. Thinking about the 30-year life cycle, because, for example, especially now that electricity costs in Britain are the highest, I believe, of any country in the G20.
apparently.
Okay, they're the highest in any country in the G20. Did you know that one of the reasons, primary drivers behind replacing those lights in these councils has been to save money. They replace it with more efficient lighting, and they save money. So that money can be, if we did that here and roll that out more in bigger areas, then we could save money, and we could reinvest that in local areas to make sure people are safe.
Sometimes you got to speculate to accumulate, don't you?
Exactly.
So
Right. I want to go back to the potholes. So and I'll put this to you guys, because every manifest or pledge, or whatever you want to call it, says about the potholes. Okay, so going back to £53,000, one of the manifests said we're going to invest £200 million on filling hosing. Well, why don't we take that £200 million and pay half that debt, or some of that debt? That would leave roughly 24,000
25,000.
interest we don't spend. That could fill a lot of hosing per day. Okay, you can hire, I think, JCB do a whole thing that fills it all in. Right, we've got a few minutes left on this. If somebody wants to put another controversial question in,
Well,
I'm quite happy.
I'd like to say I used to be a motorcyclist, but I'd hate to be a motorcyclist these days with those potholes. I wonder more of them in killed.
Yeah,
Especially
true.
in the dark and when it's raining.
Well,
'Cause
I'm
some of these holes fill up with water and you can't see them. And when you got driving your car and you go over one, you think, "Oh,
Yeah.
I was on a motorcycle, I'll be on my backside now."
Well, I still ride.
So let's
motorbikes,
do a
so-
controversial one now.
All right then.
Let's do. We got
Any
Labour. We got
controversy,
Labour.
yeah.
We're not doing controversial normally, but I just want to throw it in the mix. We've got Labour. We've got Conservatives. We've got Greens. We've got Lib Dems, and we've got Reform. Remember, Reform is a new party. Okay, a new party. You get brainwashed on TV. You know, far right, far left, or right wing, left wing. All right, don't believe everything you say, guys. The people who have joined Reform are just normal people, and they want to make a change.
Yeah.
Personally, I'm fed up with people saying they're going to do this and they do that. All right. So the question is, I'm here tonight basically to talk to you guys. I'm trying to be open and honest. You're not going to like everything I say. All right. I'm not a wizard. I haven't got answers to all your questions, and I can't change it just like that. All right. But we're going to do this again. Okay. We're going to do this game. We've got new guests next week, which Rob will introduce in a minute. But I'm asking you, give us a chance. Okay. We've got another candidate coming in next week. Okay. For St. Thomas. Okay. He'll be sat here with some new guests, but Rob will do that. All right. So I'm a gentleman. I like to think I'm a gentleman, and I run a campaign as a local councillor. Okay? I am the local councillor. I'm not interested in all the big boy stuff. All right? All I'm interested is a local councillor. Right? And that's what I'm concerned about.
Could I add to that, Neil?
Yes,
Just
sir.
a little dimension is just the mere fact that we're meeting tonight is an example of the innovation that you bring. I may be wrong, but I haven't seen that from any other candidate, actually, that I've ever voted for, actually. Oh, local candidate, anyway,
Makes
and
you
in
feel-
particular, your comment about that this is a start, this will be a repeat. That sort of innovation is important.
Yeah, it's been in. Yeah, sorry, Ray.
Okay, say because it's important to Neil and the people that's been running this councils and that doesn't seem to have the same interest, you know. And I think maybe that's why
The energy isn't there.
They can't give the energy to
Yeah.
to come and do these sort of things.
Yeah.
You know.
Neil, before we go, Shannon has just asked, do you support local farmers and rural businesses? I know inheritance tax, for example. There are many issues affecting farmers. You know, building, invading their land. You know, with solar collectors and housing and
okay,
inheritance
so-
taxes.
Yeah,
But
very
can
good
you
question.
Speak to that topic, please.
All right, very controversial. So it's all about inheritance tax and taxing people, all right? And the excuse Labour uses because some big players with a lot of money have been buying land to get around the inheritance tax. Well, if you've got a problem, look at the individuals, all right, who are doing that, not the farmers who've been doing it for years, families and all that, right? And I'm doing this for my family, right? The best thing that's ever happened to me is my granddaughter.
Well, I'm doing it for my grandchildren.
Yeah. Thank you, Neil. Thank you, everybody, for attending. And so next week, we're going to have another candidate, like Neil mentioned. And we're also going to be joined by two interesting guests, one of which is going to be a student. And in the meantime, if you could send in your questions so that we could be ready to field them and make it more concise and coherent, we'd really appreciate it. And together with any other feedback, please do send those in. Neil, final words, please.
I had a bit of a glitch there. Sorry about that. And my new grandson.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
There was one other thing I could say after what you said about the farmers. When you look at it, Lloyd's Bank have been buying up houses for years.
Yeah.
So they're actually doing under the counter stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
Neil,
and
you got the last word.
okay, we need to look after our pensioners because they've looked after us. Right, this country would not be where it is now if it wasn't for the pensioners. Right, that's my priority. The farmers. All right, we can shout about. They're the ones we should be supporting. All right, they're the ones who provide the food, who work the hours. If you want to know how they work out, how hard they work, go out and ask them to work with them. Some of you won't even keep up with it. Okay, I know they work hard. We have to look after our streets. It starts at home. We need to stop the graffiti. We need to help pick up rubbish. This morning I walked the dog. There was a gentleman, you've all seen him around Barton Fields, Princess, picking up the bags of rubbish. Nobody asked him to do it, but he takes pride.
Yeah.
So we need to get pride back into this.
Yeah.
And we need to watch where our money is going. We need to be accountable for it. All right. And the word is accountable.
Yeah.
Right. You cannot have all this money being wasted. All right. You know, Exeter City Council, I'm not even going to pull them apart. That's next week. Okay. So next week, Rob, who have we got on?
We've got Tony, another candidate from our Exeter branch. We have a university student and another guest, and we'll be hosting next week at the same time, 6 o'clock on Tuesday. Again, please field your questions in. Neil, I want to thank you very much, and I hope that you all will consider voting for Neil next Thursday if you can attend on Tuesday. Thanks again.
Thank you. We're still on, are we?
Shake my hand again, Neil. Okay? Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Well, they know we're new at it.